I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Mr. McCullough, can we get a roll call vote, or a roll call, please?
I know we do. Mr. Seminara.
Here.
Mr. Shaheen.
Here.
Mrs. Hamill.
Here.
Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Potts.
Here.
Mr. McCullough here. And Mr. Basil.
Here. For the attention of the public, we just had an executive session meeting to discuss negotiations. Having said that, we're going to be. This is a budget workshop meeting. We will not be taking any public comment until the end of the budget discussions. Moving on, everybody here has been provided with a worksheet from which we're going to probably be discussing a bunch of the different items tonight and ideas on how to balance the budget. And so what I'm going to actually ask of Ms. Penz, our business manager, is to run quickly through the line items that you have on here and what the adjustments were, and if there's any kind of questions that you guys may have as to what those line items are, that would be the time to ask them if you're looking for some clarification. And then we can move on to the, we'll run through the expenditures first and then revenues, and then we can talk about different ideas and other issues that may have come up that people may have some questions with. Okay? Any questions, comments from board members? All right.
Give her a mic.
Seeing none? All right. Danielle, if you wouldn't mind just starting with expenditures, where would we start out, and where are we today, and how did we get there?
Well, where we started out on the worksheet is where the preliminary budget stood back in January, I think. One of the reductions was, of course, the reduction for the transportation costs that I had in due to the actual CPI coming out. I had budgeted 3.5%. The CPI was 3%, so that's the reduction. The next line item you see there is an increase due to extracurricular stipends. When they're updated for 11-12, new coaches are added or changed, I then carry the change forward to 12-13, so that's there. There was a reduction of an aide due to a special ed student leaving, and an actual current aide was reassigned to an open aide position, so there was an actual reduction to an aide there. The next three actually have to do with the receipt of the VCTC actual budget versus what I had in there. You see the different credits and additions made based on what the VTC budget was. The next line item there is the 3 professional retirements that Mrs. Trainer actually had on her spreadsheet, net the replacements, so that's the cost savings there. The next couple, there was an increase due to salary adjustments for support staff positions and medical plan changes for support staff. There are just adjustments there that are normal courses that you wouldn't see, but because the budget was so early, I had to carry them in there and make the changes as necessary.
Are those professional salary advances, are those as a result of continuing ed? Like somebody took some classes and they got credits for them and therefore...
Where are you at? I didn't get there yet.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't following.
You're jumping ahead there. There's 2 more lines. Hold on one second. The reduction in extracurricular stipend is kind of the same as I explained before. Whatever is approved for 11-12. Actually, this was a 12-13 that we approved early, if you recall, at one of the board meetings for the next fiscal year, so I made that adjustment already. The increases in February for the salary advances for the professional staff, those are the ones that they get every year. Mm-hmm. They get one in October and they get one in February. Obviously, when I was able to do the budget in January, I had the October ones. I didn't have the February ones, so this now has everyone starting September 1, mm-hmm. where they should be.
Okay.
Again, medical plan changes with staff, with their having families, and just making all those corrections. Because of the Social Security limit, there's a cap on wages. I didn't have that when I originally projected the budget, so I've made adjustments there, as you'll see, that I had to do. Our dental rate is held at the current year rate, so I think I had in maybe a 5% increase, so I backed that out, which you see the difference there. Again, the same explanation for the stipends, and the last thing that was approved at the previous board meeting was the classified concessions in there for expenditures. So we started the preliminary budget at $52 million. $470,968. With those reductions to date and adjustments, we're down to $52,180,134. Moving on to the revenues. The proposed revenues started out at $49,295,342. If you'll recall, what I had in, now this is kind of deceiving because I have two line items here breaking out basic ed and transportation. As you know, as I explained and as you've seen, the governor doesn't have basic ed, transportation, or Social Security anymore. It's one grant. But right now in our budget, there's three separate line items because they have not come out with a new account code yet because they don't know if it's going to go through. So I have to kind of show them separate here, but it's still part of that one line item. So this is just showing the increase from what I originally projected the basic ed funding to what he has shown us. So that's $1,400 that I added there. We did get updated assessments as of January 1. Our assessments did go down. The reflection at the current millage rate you see is there about $2,100. And the reduction in transportation subsidy, based on everything I'm hearing, I even sat through another session yesterday on it, we're guaranteed at least what we're getting this year. And that number that I've taken out there is reflective of, from the preliminary report from the state, of what we're going to be getting for 11-12. That adjustment is needed to be in for next year. It may be more, it may be less.
On that one there, I mean, if I'm correct, at the end of the year, we submit our total and we get adjusted. We used to.
Well, the way it's supposed to work now is there's not going to be any kind of reporting to go in. So whatever
this
the numbers
year or next year?
For 11-12.
Okay, for 11 and 12, there's no adjustment.
There's no reporting. What we're getting paid for 11-12 is based off the numbers we submitted for 10-11. They provided a final. I think we got a final or a preliminary in February. We should get the final sometime in May. I think it usually comes out or the beginning of June. So once I see that, that might change again. I mean, this is a working all the way till we approve it in June. But for right now, we're guaranteed to get at least what we're getting this year. And from the preliminary statement that I have from them, this adjustment takes me there to next year. I was high. I was real high in my projection for coming in for revenue for transportation next year.
Yeah, because you're using the old methodology where we were allowed to.
So, and they even said yesterday that what the governor has on the website, she said, well, it can go up or it can go down. So I took the form that I know of what we're supposed to be getting this year, and I feel comfortable going with that number.
And the Social Security and retirement adjustments based upon the increase in salaries?
Retirement is still going to be based on salaries. Social Security has been thrown into this grant. Now, I actually worked through and I feel pretty comfortable with what we estimated in the budget to be kind of where we're going to be at this year. Okay. So that's why you don't see an adjustment for that.
Because, correct me, if we do a step adjustment in, was it October again? Or whenever we do the next one, if those salaries, obviously there's an increase, then the increase in Social Security and the increase in retirement based on that step increase is not going to be absorbed. We have to absorb that, and you can't go back to it.
Take retirement out of the picture.
Okay.
It's basic ed, transportation, and Social Security. Retirement is staying the way retirement
Social Security
was.
Then, I mean,
Social Security, any increasing in salaries from what your base year is 11-12, any increases from 11-12 will no longer be reimbursed by the formula. It will all be funded by the district. The state used to reimburse us half of our expense.
Right.
There is no longer going to be a formula because there's no longer going to be a Social Security subsidy.
That's my point. So as we go forward, a salary increase, a step increase, whatever.
But Social Security, not retirement.
Social Security portion of that.
Correct.
How much were we getting reimbursed for Social Security?
Half of it.
Half, 50%.
And that Social Security was running us, what, about $1.5 million? So we're getting maybe $750,000 back a year?
No, it's still almost $800,000 or $900,000, I believe.
Okay, so we're going to be losing about $800,000, $900,000.
No, they rolled it into the other number.
I got it, but
moving forward, any increase in that.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not formula driven anymore.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And it looks to me, all right, yeah.
You're not losing that $1 million. You're just, they're giving it to you to spend in a
Got it.
fashion.
We're not
You
getting
just
any
won't get any more if you would have gotten more based off of the
The
formula.
problem that they're worried about with these formula-driven numbers is that it guaranteed you, based on the formula, a set amount of money. Now it's going to be more at somebody's just potentially making something up and saying this is your number now, and not having a real methodology for determining how they set that number. That's what we're losing.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the revenue side?
Yeah, I have a question. Any like new revenue from anywhere, homes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I have a question. Well, looking at the racetrack, is it breaking ground next year?
No, actually, I had spoken to a gentleman, actually at the beginning of March, from Liberty Bell Motorsports. He said they're looking for a preliminary plan approval late summer, early fall.
Okay.
He said then they have to go into the final approval process.
Okay.
Once ground is broken, he said construction will take approximately a year.
Okay. So in other words,
You look at 20.
He had said
15.
that as soon as he has a timeline, he is going to contact me because he really wants to have open lines of communication with the district.
Okay.
So I welcomed him to come to a finance committee once he had
no,
a
the reason why,
timeline.
because I went to that open house, and I know even during under construction, the district will start to see revenue.
Not
a lot.
Not according to the assessment office.
Okay,
Because we
well,
did call
They
the
won't
assessment
reassess
office.
until after it's
Okay,
completed.
I just want to make sure we're not.
And if you also realize, I mean, the issue we had with the football, the field, the stadium, and it's going to go through the same thing. It's going to go through.
Again, I'm just asking the question. Again, I wasn't sure the timeline, and I'm.
I think they actually ran into an obstacle, which
Okay.
was PennDOT. They submitted their plans based on, I think, 3 points of access to Route 724, and
Okay.
PennDOT only granted them 2.
Okay.
So all of the assumptions on how they're going to control traffic and get people in and out of there have
He redesigned.
been
Again,
turned
I'm
on their
making
head.
sure if we pick up anything, let's add some revenue. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The other, let's let Danielle finish. So scrolling down the sheet here, then what we have left is use of fund balance, correct?
The placeholder in there is 1.5 million, which is what was agreed upon for the preliminary budget. Again, that's listed there as a placeholder. With all the changes in expenditures and revenues and that use of fund balance from the preliminary budget, we are still looking at a deficit of approximately $1.45 million.
Okay. All right. So now a couple of things that aren't on the worksheet that we should probably put on the worksheet. Probably first and foremost is this the remaining capital project funds from the defeasance of the bonds.
That's over on the right.
It's on the right. That's what I'm sort of going with this now, is that we should probably kind of move that over to the left in the formula, because I think we've recognized that we have to use it, and it has to be used either on immediate capital projects, or it needs to be used as part of the debt service payment this year, or we need to defease the bonds. And so, as a board, how do we want to move with that one?
We have to use it.
You have to use it,
Let's
so-
slide it over.
Just remember, it's a one-time hit.
We'll still
One time.
$1.5 million fund balance.
Again,
You're
yeah.
starting that much in the hole next year.
But again, I'm just,
We're going to start $2.4 million in the hole next year as it sits right now.
yeah. But again, it's the one-time
Right.
helper.
Right.
I would concur with that recommendation based on, as you know, you've all been informed in a lengthy analysis by our solicitor that this is probably something that we should be taking a very serious look at, especially regarding any potential IRS implications. So I would certainly support that recommendation from the board.
Okay. And does anybody disagree with that? Okay.
Correct.
The other one, there's 3 other ones we have here sort of as options recommended. One is a reduction in special education placement budget of $200,000.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We have been monitoring that, as we always do with special ed placements. As you know, it can be very volatile. Volatile is the wrong word. It can fluctuate a lot in terms of the placements that we have. Mrs. Mikowski sat down with Mrs. Penza and me as recently as yesterday, and we took a look at it, and we had originally that was really a placeholder, and now that we've gone through the year and have analyzed the placements, we're even more comfortable with that number, that's a number that we believe we can support for next year. Again, with the understanding that if we have a rash of necessary placements, that could affect that number. But I don't think it's fair to tax the taxpayer on what might happen. So I think we would be comfortable with that reduction.
Have you guys left yourself a little wiggle room in case?
Well, there's always, yes. I would say that's on the number. That's fairly close. That's no wiggle room. But I would suggest to you, in a good year, we could wind up even showing a surplus on that number at the end of next year, or we could show a deficit on that number. That's the nature of the way special education placements work. Mm-hmm. But we have done the number analysis. We have looked at, if you remember last year, we had a little bit of some lack of information. We've tightened that up. We have a very discrete list of the names of the students. We know how many. We know where they are. We know when their placements are ending. We've tracked them all year. So we're much more comfortable with this number than we were last year at this time.
I would probably suggest we hold that off.
I mean, you don't have to decide. You don't have to tonight.
I would just suggest we hold that off, just for the simple fact that special education seems to be that mystery bucket. And, in a month and a half, we can get a student move in, and then we got to take it back off.
Yeah, a lot can change between now and June.
Right.
And as you said, June 30th is technically our deadline. We can certainly track this until the end of, but you need to know that the number that we posted here is based on what I call September 1 placements, factoring all the kids through their summer placement, factoring them whether we're going to return them or not. So when I sat down with Mrs. Mikowski, I said, give me your list and your number for September 1 to start the school year. This number would reflect that process. So again, it doesn't have to be decided today.
If you remember last year, we sat here and she gave us a number and a number of students. 3 weeks later, we had her come and defend that number, and she had to add 3 more headcount to it because people didn't. So we know we got a potential.
Correct.
Because we don't know. I don't want to put it on the other side of the ledger and then have to take it back again. Okay, I'm going to get a realistic picture of where we are.
Well, we'll continue to recommend, what you need to do between now and the time we pass the final budget, and then we can go from there.
Dr. Otto, I have a question.
Sure.
How much do we spend, how much was budgeted for special ed placements this year?
I don't have that number in front of me. We were actually talking about that today. Danielle, do you have that?
I think, don't quote me, but I want to say it was around $736,000.
It was in the mid 700s.
All right, thank you.
But again, I would just caution you, that's one of those numbers that you have to track from September to June, because between now and June, we could either have 2 kids quit, move, or 2 move in from another district, and we suddenly have to, because of their IEP, we don't have a choice, we have to assume their costs. So I think Mr. Shaheen's advice is sound, and we should probably follow that.
Okay. Next one on that list under options recommended is, I have in mind, middle school foreign language program.
I think at this point it might be good to have Mrs. Trainer come to the mic and explain. We have some personnel issues that I think the board would need to be aware of, depending on the action we're going to take and in terms of notifying anybody based on what decisions we might even make this evening. So, Mrs. Trainer, you've all been provided with some background information. I'm going to let her walk you through that.
I think I have shared with you in the past that there are options. The issue of foreign language comes to the table sort of as a delayed response to us taking away level 1 last year. And so in order to staff the high school next year, we need to make some decisions on foreign language. But even more so than that, that particular decision on your part as to whether you want to continue having foreign language in a exploratory nature, if you want to say it, where they're learning a little bit of culture and the words of each language, or the academic reading program. If you chose the academic reading program, it has the potential to change significantly the assignment of about 15 different staff members through a domino effect of seniority. I'm down to about 6 weeks before I bring people in the summer languages training when it's in Pottstown versus having to take it somewhere else. And the other piece of who's on first or where we're going to have some people. Last week, my annual federal programs meeting with the Department of Education, they're changing reporting to now give you federal money if we can show that we have equity of staffing assignments across the elementary level, and by that they're looking at total per pupil expenditures, including number of years of staff members and so on. So Mrs. Pence and I have to get started looking at all of the staffing at the elementary, and if that doesn't show equality in numbers, which we don't know until we start looking at it, that will be more staffing changes. And so the middle school program is really the linchpin to allow me to make other decisions. And I guess more than any of that, staff really just need to know where they're going to be next year. There's especially those who realize they're at the bottom of the seniority list and therefore either could lose their job, should start looking, or know they'll be reassigned. And so they've been asking, could you help us out, give us some information on where we're going to be. So it really does all hinge on that particular decision. And if you say you want to keep it, that's fine. I can then move forward with staffing and calculations. So either way, I'll deal with it. I just really need to know what you're thinking.
When do you need that? And I don't mean tonight. We've got a lot of moving pieces yet. So
Could you wait a month?
Excuse me?
Could you wait a month?
No. I got to submit the Title I Federal Programs Grant early in May. The training for the grade books is for the end of April. And you also have, if you're furloughing staff members, you need to give them the month of May in order to file hearings before you finally do your resolutions. So the clock is ticking. I need to know by the end of April.
okay. What are the total number?
I mean, by your.
I mean, you should know by the end of April. What are the total number of head-outs here?
You're talking about both world language, and now I think you just referred to
The increased class size.
the increased class sizes. So,
Yeah, let me just for the benefit, can I?
Class size is not taking a person by me increasing the size. Right now, it's purely because of low enrollment. So the person and a half, the position and a half that you're seeing on the second page of my document is truly because APC is coming in low in their enrollment for this year.
So no, wait, how much are you increasing class sizes by?
No.
I didn't touch class sizes yet.
Okay.
This is based just, I can reduce them if you want me to keep those staff members.
No.
But right now, the positions that are on page 2 are not me raising class sizes to try and find you people to furlough. It's just truly based on right now, there's only 78 registrations and there's 120 currently in kindergarten. And so when I do some calculations, again, we're not going to see that many more students. I could easily eliminate 2 sections and most likely 3 over.
Just a point of, just to clarify, just 1 second. But that's not what I'm going to clarify. If you would not have applied for the elementary curtailment, even when your numbers go down, you can't just furlough staff based on enrollment numbers. You have to apply for that curtailment. So we've done that. So you can do whatever curtailments at the elementary you need to do based on the information you
And I've asked the question 2 different ways, and I'll ask it a third different
Yeah.
way. I'm trying to get total number of heads that are affected based upon enrollment being lower and if we curtail foreign language.
And also increase class sizes.
Increased class size.
So there should be 3 different buckets.
That have a dollar amount that affects your staff.
There should be 3 different numbers.
Right.
Okay, the middle school foreign language is a person and a half.
But must you add anybody at the high school?
No.
It's a net.
I'm moving
Okay,
A person from the middle
okay,
school to the
okay.
high school. and
So
by
total of
seniority,
1.5 people foreign language.
Person and a half.
Okay.
1.5 position.
That was the full-time Spanish teacher, part-time Spanish teacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
For your
Enrollment.
enrollment in kindergarten, 1.5 individuals.
And that was
Three
the,
sections.
that was the
Full-time person and a part-time person.
and that was the APC kindergarten position and the APC grade 2 position.
No, the APC kindergarten full-time and
Oh,
APC
sorry.
0.5.
Right.
So now we're at 3.
Okay.
It's 4 people. 2 are full-time, 2 are part-time people. There's 4 in the
It's 3 FTEs.
3 full-time people.
No.
3 full-time positions.
No.
Well, if you
Right
have
now,
one-
they're part-time, there's 2 part-time
Okay, it's
positions,
4
2
people,
people,
3
and 2 full-time positions. We've
3
talked about
3 FTEs.
4
Three FTEs.
It's 4, 3
people,
FTEs.
3 full-time equivalents.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Not used to have to do the FTE.
Yes. Rob, you're right.
Class size reduction, so far, there, it appears to me I could only give you 1 person, or now you're up to another individual.
Okay. So all 3 things net us 4 FTEs.
All 4 FTEs.
But just let me clarify, that last one that you talked about,
Yes.
you do not have on your spreadsheet anywhere.
Okay, that's fine.
I
That's
just
fine.
wanted
Okay,
to
that's
make that clarification.
okay. That's fine.
That's not there
I'm
yet.
trying to get the number.
It's not there yet.
I'm trying to get the number of FTEs is 4 if you do all 3.
Can you repeat where the 4th one came from, please?
Increase in class size.
Now, I was confused. Now that actually confuses me because when I'm looking at the class size reduction sheet that you gave us, where you put things in green and recommendations, and I was just kind of scanning through it, it looked to me like there was 4 or 5 positions there. Am I not reading that correctly?
No, you weren't. I was moving people to where they were. I was moving people to positions that were to a place where we really did need to add a teacher, and I was not going to hire the person. So the only people that could take out of, like I had to move from a 2nd to a 3rd grade because 3rd grade was too large. So I indicated that where I was moving people to. And I also said that if you wanted to do the elimination of foreign language, there's 2 elementary people that I could take out of the elementary school to the middle school to take care of the academic reading program.
Okay, so again,
So again, if you said to me, keep foreign language, I'm going to deal with it. Then I can go back and look at staffing at the elementary in a different light because it's different people.
you're confused some of them.
Okay.
Basically, middle school language is like a 1.5.
Correct.
Okay?
And before you go on, that represents the 124?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
The increase, the enrollment, decrease in enrollment is 1.5. Increase in class sizes based upon PDE, well, again, it still gives us 1.
Correct.
Okay, for a total of 4 FTEs.
Well, what's the number?
Yeah, I have a question, yeah.
124 for the middle school language program.
The 112 is the reduction in enrollment.
How much enrollment?
The 112 is the reduction in
They got
Which is
enrollment.
a 1.5
class size,
people.
that's reduction.
Well, it was originally that, and then it was changed, and I didn't know that until today, so I'm sorry that.
And so that other number is somewhere between 80 and 100 ballpark.
No,
I know you don't like ballpark.
it's not, but
So reduction in enrollment is another 1.5.
People.
reduction in enrollment is what's on your spreadsheet as class.
Increase class sizes.
It's
Yeah,
the
it's
112.
the 112
It's just
number.
a different
Yeah.
wording.
Okay. And then there's a potential 3rd line item out here, which is increased class size.
Of 1 FTE.
From the 2nd grade.
Which is
I
ballpark.
don't have it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not
It would
gonna
depend who
ballpark
it is. So you can't speculate on the number until you
No,
know who the
but you
person
got it.
And
is.
that will depend on your foreign language decision as to who it is.
So
I thought it was half a person.
this sheet that you gave us that's got the green bars says class size reduction impact K5, and maybe I'm just not reading it right, but I was looking at it, it says, February 12 enrollment, and it's got number of sections, and you get like 7, 7, 6, 7, blah, blah. And you move over options 1 and 2 where you highlight these things in green, and you got 5, 6, 4, 2, 3, and you just kind of sum it up, and I'm looking at look to me like we reduced like 4 sections.
But if you look on page 2, I've told you where I had to move some of those people to because of, for example, if you look at Monocacy grade 2.
Monocacy grade 2, yeah.
I moved a second grade person to third grade to bring it down to 21 in the class.
Yeah.
And at AIC, those 2 individuals with the superscripts indicate the 2 people that I could move to the middle school for this reading program.
She gives you net per building, but doesn't give you net across the district. Okay?
Yeah, I was looking at net across the building, so I'm looking at, let's say, just take APC for example. I'm starting at the top, and it looks like number section 7 for kindergarten, you're going to 5. So that's 2 sections gone. And then in grade 1, it's 7.
Since I did that, Andrew, we think we could give you a third section, which gives you the other half first.
Okay, well, let me just run through this with you so I understand it. And then in Amity Primary, grade 1, is have 7, you recommend keeping 7. Grade 2, 7, you recommend 6. So I look at Amity Primary and I say, okay, well, we're losing 3 sections overall, according to this sheet, in Amity Primary, correct? Is that correct? I mean, am I following that right?
Where did you get the third?
Well, you go from 7 to 5 in kindergarten, you go from 7 to 7 in first, and you go from 7 to 6 in second grade.
And big sections, so 7 to 5 is 1 person.
Gotcha.
They're
Okay.
half-day kindergarten.
That's where I wasn't getting the math. Okay, that explains. So net, you're telling me this whole sheet sums up to 1.5? If I take this whole sheet and I'm adding halves and wholes and moving people back and forth, it's a net of 1.5 in reduction, increased class sizes? Is that what we?
2.5, because you got 1.5 with the
Kindergarten
With enrollment, and then the other 1.5, the other 1.
is a second grade.
You got 2.5 FTEs there.
Got it. Okay.
But overall, you're not increasing class size per student.
Not
Number of
really.
students in classrooms.
No, I'm not putting more in, I'm just picking the option that makes parity of program across the district.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. You're not going from like 22 to 26 or
No,
something.
I didn't do that anywhere.
Okay, that's what I'm...
Yet,
So,
unless that's your next grade.
no, but again, so in other words, it's staying basically the way they are this year. Give or take a student here or there. Okay.
Have you done an analysis for actually increasing class sizes?
You have that, and when I took a teacher away, I actually got higher than the amount of desks I could get into a room. That's where you see a lot of the 34s, 35s.
Right.
So we really shouldn't call this increasing class size.
Yeah, I think it's not.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it's
That-
really not increasing
I
class size.
didn't know that until today.
Okay,
so
that's
just
fine.
change that on your
Yeah,
sheet.
can you change that
It will
wording
be
so-
updated when you get it. I can only do
No, that's
what
fine.
I have.
It's no criticism, but I think it's somewhat confusing. Because since you're not increasing class sizes, it shouldn't be called... I don't care what you call it, but...
We have decided to call it elementary curtailment.
That's fine. One should be kindergarten, one should be other, whatever.
Well, most
I
of
think
it
it
seems
should be
like it's
reduction
reduction
in
in enrollment. It doesn't seem to me
Correct.
like it's.
Correct.
It's what I-
From a state standpoint, though, in order to furlough anyone there, you have to call it an elementary
I
curtailment.
don't care what you call it.
Yeah, but it's not
Well,
like we
it's
turned
important.
around and said we're increasing the class
Right,
size.
but it's
We're not
important you
doing
don't
that.
say you're laying someone off for enrollment decline, that you can't do that. You have to do it as a curtailment. Just be clear on that. And you as a board have to vote that as a curtailment at some point if that's the direction we go.
All right.
If you would choose not to agree to the curtailment, I would have to take those 3 individuals, the 2.5 positions, and find places in the elementary, which would then reduce class sizes just by the nature of
We got it.
have to find a home. So you have to go through that curtailment approval in order to be able to furlough those. But the who's in those spots all hinges on the regarding.
We got that, but there's a lot of pieces still moving.
Right, so the one number,
We know you need it by the end of April, and hopefully we can get that.
and the one number we really don't have an estimate on at this particular point, correct? The 1 FTE?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay, that's right.
More than 0.
It's less than 200.
Less than the other one. That's,
Less than the other two, yeah.
but that's a correct assumption, Mr. McLaughlin.
Okay. All right. Just a revenue question. In the budget overall, rent from the transition house is in the budget? Okay. Okay, so moving down the list, then we have the Education Foundation loan placeholder of $50,000. I guess,
is this 50,000 represented as part of the expenditures? 52 million that we saw?
It's not represented at all, that's why it's on the right-hand side. I
Okay.
just need to know if we need to increase expense.
If we did decide to take this on, can we pay that out of the fund balance instead of the general fund? Why does it have to hit the
It's the
expense
same
line?
Same thing.
it's the same thing.
It's really all the same pot of money.
You're saying why
It's just
is it
that-
coming out of the operating account as opposed to just taking it out of fund balance?
Right, why is it showing up as an expenditure in our operating expenses as opposed to us saying, let's
Just
take
reducing fund
$50,000
balance.
out of the fund balance and use it?
Yeah, I would say it wouldn't be an operating expense because
Either way, it's the same thing. I mean,
you're just
I
reducing
understand what
fund
you're saying,
balance.
but you're right.
So our debate here, or our questions here are whether or not we want to spend this money. It's not going to increase our expenditures $50,000.
That's correct.
No, it will.
Why?
Well, how else am I going to pay it out? I have to hit it against.
No.
You just pay it out of fund
He's
balance.
just saying you pay it out of
Zero
fund
out.
balance.
You'll
So they
we'll
projected.
take another 50 out of fund
It's not an
balance,
operating
and then you'll
expense.
pay-
He's saying it's Danielle. It's ending up
I
with.
think the thing is,
It's ending up
if
with
you put it
3
in an expense, you got to put 50,000 as revenue.
Right.
You got to increase the fund balance, draw down to 50,000.
Right.
So they net each other
He's
out.
just saying instead of being the 3.649 and your fund balance, you'll only have 3.6.
When will
Your
you-
right-hand amount.
But when it gets written out, it's not going to be written out of fund balance. I have to,
No,
according
you're
to
right.
the
Yeah,
accountant,
you're gonna-
I have to put it in the budget
Correct.
as an expense in order to
Correct.
hit it that way with
Correct.
the audit.
Right.
Correct, but either
you're
way.
going to show $50,000 additional revenue because we're taking $50,000 out of the
No.
Fund balance.
That's
Okay,
up to
for
the
it.
board's decision where that comes, how that.
How it's covered.
I mean, if the 1.5 million, if you say we only want to use $1 million, well, does that million include the 50, or are you going to do $1 million plus the 50,000? That's the direction I need.
Correct.
And secondarily,
So it goes over there and goes in two places.
My concern, though, is if we're going to draw $50,000 worth of expenses, whether it's fund balance or general fund, are we going to estimate revenue also?
well, and remember, this is supposed to be structured as a loan.
It's a loan.
This is going to be structured as a loan, and we will be writing, if you would just say you went ahead and did this, we will be asking Mr. Subers to write up an agreement with whomever gets the loan for a payback schedule and all of that stuff.
If
So,
there's no money, it doesn't get paid back. Mr. New is very specific.
That's correct. It's a sunk cost. I think you have to recognize it as a sunk cost.
Right, so my thought, my question is if we go ahead and we do this, then we also need to put 50,000, whether it's fund balance or just additional revenue from expected to come back from the foundation.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the first year.
I don't think it'll be in this year.
we wouldn't be.
You might do that the second year, but you won't do it the first year.
Right.
There's no way you'll get anything the first year.
And I'm not even sure you can show it as revenue. And
You get-
well, you can only
I don't
show it
think
as a repayment of the loan. You know what I'm saying? Because let's say they make $100,000, right? They're only going to pay us back $50,000 that they owe us. They're not going to pay back $100,000. They're going to take that $50,000 and then spend it on some need that we may have, offsetting a cost for the school district.
My recommendation would be put it in as a receivable.
Yeah, accounts
Correct.
receivable.
Correct. It's not, yeah. You don't know you're going to get anything the first year.
And is it 50,000? I mean, I thought
That's the total. That's the total.
That's the maximum.
That would be the total maximum in.
But was he going to draw down that full amount in the fiscal year, or was it?
Yes.
I was under the understanding it was going to be paid as you go.
Mrs. Hamill, feel free. She was part of the.
Well, no, you got to pay. You still got to pay the executive director from day one.
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Was,
I mean, so if all of a sudden he takes his first draw of 5,000, stumbles onto 100, then he stops drawing money from us.
Right.
Correct. That is the plan.
The initial cost was the $9,000 for his services.
Right.
But you still got to budget 50.
Right, I understand that.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially.
Correct.
I think you got to just set it aside as part of the general reserve as a designated $50,000 in the general fund balance.
Either way, but yeah.
You're assuming by June, if anything's going to be appearing from his work. That's what, as he stated to us. Now, if that's going to happen, how much is it going to be?
this year yet?
No, I don't think it'll.
I think based on the fact that we haven't really even engaged with him yet, I wouldn't count on too much money this year.
There's no way. He won't even find an executive director by the end of the year.
So technically, we could go into next year and still need to put money out because
No. This is for next year.
This is for next
all
year.
the way till.
This is from July through June of next year.
Okay.
Well, and then if we're going to do, I mean, I wouldn't even wait. I mean, Mr. Bailey, you don't. We shouldn't even wait. If we're going to do this, take out the fund balance this year.
That's what. Yeah, absolutely. It can't wait till July.
No, so we shouldn't even put $50,000 in. That 50 should be taken right off. It should be part of next year's budget.
So then what I'm hearing is we should, designate's not the right word because there's all the new classifications of fund balance. I'll figure out which one it is and the board would vote on it. I want to say it's committed because I think
you're
that's
right.
the one that you have to vote on. You would actually have to vote on it and say you want to commit $50,000 of fund balance to the Ed Foundation.
Yeah, but,
and then that would be on the books.
But in order to do that, don't we have to meet with the foundation, make sure everything's right? I mean, I don't want to do that this year until we know everything's a smooth transaction. I'm not willing to agree to fill out $50,000 this year.
Well, we can uncommit it too.
Well, either way, I still wouldn't do it.
If you want to do it this year, that's how we would need to. You would see it even in the audit for the end of this year would show 50,000 committed to the foundation. But the board, just to be clear, with that new designation, the board actually physically needs to vote that. It's not an assigned where we can just do it like you do when you approve the budget. That one actually has to have a resolution to it.
So Danielle, just, sorry, but
That's okay.
let's say that happens this year. We all vote and agree to designate $50,000.
Or commit
$50,000 for this to happen. But draws don't start getting taken out until the next fiscal year. So you still have that on the books as something that's committed fund balance? Is that
correct?
Okay.
You'll see if you would look at this year's audit, you have assigned of I think it's the 670, which is to balance the budget, and then there was unassigned, and then I think there was restricted, which was our prepaid. You would have another line there saying committed, which would be that $50,000. So in 1213, you would see it as an expense, but it's really coming out of the fund balance piece. That's just the other side of the entry.
What we see is available fund balance most of the time.
That's what you see on here, but if you look in the actual audit, you would see the different designations.
That 50 wouldn't show up here.
No, because you don't,
like in the savings
because you're not allowed to spend that. The number that's represented here, if you scroll over, I have a little text box that shows you that it's the assigned and unassigned, because those are yours to, I don't want to say play with, but for a better word, play with.
Have anybody met with the foundation yet?
No, we haven't moved forward pending.
So how do we know?
What the there's really, I don't think there's any impediment that we have. We just need to know that we have
foundation.
Unless you start your own.
There's a foundation. We don't have a problem there. There's a foundation. We just need to, and Mr. New has said he'd help us in that transition to undo the current leadership, which is very minimal, and we move in and start our operation.
And again, my point is, that's provided they will do that. They don't have to agree to give up that foundation.
No, and we can start another foundation.
But then that will be more cost. That's why.
I think it's de minimis cost.
I don't know.
Opening up, starting a 503c, you can do that on LegalZoom.com for like $400. I mean, it's not.
I'm just saying.
Again, I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole. I mean,
no, I didn't want to go down there either.
But you took us there, didn't you?
No, it's an important conversation that the Ed Foundation's going anywhere.
If we designate the funds, it's not an expense that should show up on our budget because we're not going to, unless we're going to leave it on that side and not use fund balance, we're going to use capital, we're going to use general fund to fund.
I think before we vote on it, I want our ducks a little more in a row with that current foundation and legal documents before we, again, I commit to $50,000, whether it be this year, next year, or whatever.
I'm not even going whether we commit or not.
Well, I know, but they're looking at what I assume they're looking at putting this on the next agenda, which is in the next 2 weeks.
I didn't hear him say that.
Well, okay, we don't have to.
We want you to start really thinking when you vote on this new foundation. I mean, that's what we brought up.
I think it needs to be put on the agenda for the committee of the whole to talk about it. I don't think it's a budget issue anymore at this point. This is now a.
Well, that's fine. I mean, yeah.
Well, I think it is a budget issue.
It is.
The more I'm sitting here thinking, if you think about it, okay, at the end of 10-11, on your audit, you had an assigned fund balance of $670,000. That was fund balance assigned to the 11-12 budget, which meant you had more expenditures in 11-12, and you were assigning that fund balance to cover it. If we're going to commit $50,000 in fund balance in this school year, you're committing it to expend it next school year. It needs to be on the expense side in the budget for next year. The net is zero. So it is a budget implication for 12-13.
Right, but the net is zero.
Right, but if it's decided that it wants to be committed in fund balance, it also needs to go on this expenditure side on the left.
I got that. I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's a net zero
well,
impact.
I just want everyone to understand that it is a budget
there's an
issue.
There's an impact on an expense and there's an impact on revenue, which
right.
goes without.
And with that said, I think it's safe for me to say that the placeholder we have in here for fund balance right now, the 1.5, does not include the 50,000.
Correct.
So
You're right.
It would be additional.
I want to throw that out to make sure.
So it would be that plus another 50 if that everything stayed constant.
Another revenue placeholder for fund balance.
Right.
We'll have another line item under that.
That is correct.
Right. Got it.
Okay. Moving down the list of options not recommended, we're in red. We have the elementary band program at 117.5. I guess my question was, last year we broke that out into two tranches, 4th and then 5th grade. Is there any reason why we can't do that again this year? Or are they?
It would be, the net effect would be the same.
It's the same. So if you get rid of one, you got to get rid of both. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well,
that's.
What do you see there?
How many people? Yeah.
Henry, what's the personnel piece that would involve? The elementary band? Because I think it's just 1.5.
Yes.
1.5?
Yes.
That's what I recall.
Half of the second individual is used for general music instruction, both at APC and their home building. So it's half of an individual and a full individual.
We're in the interest of time, maybe we can just go down this list and you can give us those head counts for all these things because we're going to have the same question for everything on this list.
Well, once you pass the elementary band program,
They're all grouped.
they're pretty much facilitator and trainer that we had posted as, I mean, again, these aren't recommended, but we had talked about these in January. That's 2 people. The middle school athletics is a series of coaches, and the rest of the way down there, it's a series of activity advisors and coaches that I could quantify that for you. I just don't have it now, but that's just based on their stipends.
But there's no bodies out there.
It's not bodies per se. That's just stipends.
That's stipends.
What is our liability as a district by not having an athletic trainer?
I don't think you can run it.
Our athletic trainers at most of our sporting events, I want to know, and they take care of both our athletes and the other team's athletes in case of an injury.
Yeah, I'd have to get that answered. I don't know. I'd have to get a Suber's interpretation on that.
Trainer. You can run without a facilitator or athletic director, but I don't think you can run without a trainer.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
I don't think you can.
I'll check with Mr. Suber's on that one. I honestly don't know. Go ahead.
Before we hired those individuals, we paid significantly more to Commonwealth.
Correct.
Through contracts.
So you almost have to have a trainer.
Excuse me?
You have to have a trainer.
We used to have them in lieu of the individuals we currently have hired because we found out to be much more economical
Correct.
than the contracts we use for
So therefore, your point is you probably have to have one in order to have a team.
Yes.
If not, why would you then just not hire anybody?
I agree with what you're saying. I just have to investigate it because since athletics are not required by the school code, by default, I don't think you'd have an athletic trainer required by school code. You'd have it required some other way, maybe by PIAA. I don't know. So we have to research that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
And that's everything we have on the sheet.
So the activities that's just strictly club advisors.
The numbers that you see there is the total elimination. That's everybody.
You're right, Andrew. It's advisors.
Well, it looks like that's
club
just
advisors, it's your yearbooks,
yearbooks.
it's your...
But I thought yearbooks was self-sustaining at this point.
You're right, sorry. That's self-sustaining. It would be like your student government, your high school newspaper,
Spanish
your
club, German club.
science clubs, your choral, your winter guards, your TESA.
TSA, yeah.
So anything that's paid an extra activity stipend.
Right.
And just as a note, if you remember, we noted on that sheet for you, just in a hypothetical world, the elimination of all these would force us to have to readjust our revenue.
Sure.
Because we'd have no reason to collect an activity fee.
Right. Well,
I think we got to be careful because there's some in there that you can't eliminate.
well, that's where I was sort of going with it, because last year we had a line item that said reduction of extracurricular club advisors 9 through 12, and it was $40,000, about half of that number, a high school activity. So I assume that there were some other things in there that
We said, the National Honor Society.
we may have redlined a couple of things.
We exempted, you're right, the organizations that we exempted from an activity fee, I think, would probably have to remain in here so we could adjust this number accordingly if you would choose to avail yourself of these options.
Yeah, this just represents I was
Everything.
supposed to go all in. So
Yeah.
This
the
was
only
all-
thing
this
that's
was the
not
all-in
represented
comment.
in here are those self-funding. The yearbooks aren't in here. The
Mus-
middle school musical and
musical.
those few items, they're not in this number.
Right. Okay.
I have a question quick. Looking here at options not recommended, we have at high school athletics, and middle school athletics. Now, last year there was an option available, 25% reduction in athletic program. Is there anything percentage-wise available this year, like any options listed? Because here, last year we had 25% reduction in athletic program with an estimated savings of $182,000.
That is what.
I think we eliminated that when we decided to go with the activity fee.
Athletics, they did away with.
That's what got us into the Title IX. That's what got us into the Title IX situation that we were in when.
That was already done.
Yeah, they did that.
Oh, yeah, we reduced the budget.
That's
by
what we're
law.
operating under this
That's
year.
what we're operating now.
Thank you.
Right. So that budget went from 600 and change to 500 and something. He cut like $187,000 out of his budget.
We lost a number of assistant coaches.
Let's see here.
Can we go over the fund one?
The what?
The technology budget?
Okay. Before we get there, just quickly, I had sent an email to Ms. Penza and the administration asking a couple of questions regarding how we were doing vis-a-vis activity fees, what we budgeted versus what we have received to date. And your recommendation was that we would reduce next year's budget in total $37,000.
That was as of on Friday.
Yeah.
That will change. I will hope to have a better number for you maybe next week, which is why you don't see it on here, because there were some deposits that came over that were not entered into the system, so my number was only as good as what was posted at the time. That number went up a little bit from the spring. Not all of the spring sports were in as of the date I gave you on the 21st. They actually came in towards the end of the month, which you had at that point. So
Is a
I
little
still
bit-
think we need...
What is that, like $1,000? Is it like
no, it was
$10,000?
Yeah, 10. I was looking at about the 4,400. I think I quoted for the ticket sales, which we won't know until that stuff comes from the athletic office. But the other, instead of 33,000, I was looking at decreasing by about 21,400, and that may change. Like I said, until June, I can't. But probably the next version of this sheet you see will have those reductions on there for revenue from me.
Okay. If everybody wouldn't mind, I think we ought to pencil something in of a placeholder there in terms of that, because I think there's going to be some sort of adjustment down, a negative.
I would say 20, what you'll see from me coming forward is 25.
Make sure everybody's clear where you're talking about.
So what I'm talking about is if you go to original proposed revenues and we have increase in basic education funding, you got reduction in assessed values, and then you got reduction in transportation subsidies. We just talked about moving over the remaining capital project funds up to the fees bond. And then I'm suggesting you add another line there that says reduction of activity fees, ticket sales, physical fees to the tune of negative $20,000. So we're reducing our revenues for next year, our projection for revenues next year by 20 or 25, depending on what Danielle gets back to us. But at least put a placeholder over there now so we recognize that revenues won't be as high as projected.
Just to be clear, the 790 will be under the expense, not the revenue side, when you see it from me.
Okay.
It's actually reducing the debt expense.
Okay. And the other one was the Commerce Bank agreement that we signed that we expect to generate, I think the estimate was $20,000 worth of revenue for next year, huh?
So it's a net against activity fee.
Well, it may be a net, but I think we need to put it in there as a revenue stream for next year.
We'll itemize it for now.
Well, I mean, I'll let that up to the board. I didn't put that in there because they said it's 20, but we haven't been through it yet, so I don't know what it will be.
But aren't they paying us on a...
It's going to be whatever our expense is. So if our expenses are down because we're not going to be spending as much, that $20,000 might not be as much.
But we're going to be... I would think our expenses are going to be more, right? We're spending...
It just depends with the vendors that we're spending with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's fine. I will add it if that's what the board wants. That's what I said. So.
I think it's such a small number. It won't do any damage either way.
Okay. You want to move to technology?
Again, I looked at it briefly, and it's starkly less than it's been in the past. But
Well, we've invited our new IT person, so if you wouldn't mind letting him walk you through it, maybe that'd be a good start. Welcome, Mr. Hawes, your first budget meeting.
Thank you. So this is the fun one. So just to kind of run through, there's some differences in the format as well as some encounters of what you've seen in the past. Today, way too much detail, so we're trying to classify some of the shows. So some things to consider that. A good portion of the budget is virtually unchanged. Total difference was about $397 or $399. There was a $10,000 reduction taken in that by the previous director back in the fall. Basically assigned that to the savings that we'll have by not having group wise. But just starting kind of at the top, you'll see they're broken out by building. There's very similar lines as we move between. Some of these are related to curriculum programs. Mrs. Trainer had this in place. So we have some staff training for the campus system. That's the top one there that you'll see pretty much throughout the budget, or throughout the whole budget. There's some contracts with DCIU, which is kind of a general bucket for computer supplies. Biggest expense there typically is toner for the building, and changing the way that we handle some toner purchases. I hope to realize savings, but at this point, it's somewhat unpredictable as to what those numbers will be until we move through the year. In the next piece, we have some workstation software bundles. Again, it's a fairly generic bucket that we use to purchase software generally to support the office staff, the things that are not considered part of instruction, like Adobe Pro, Visio, other software bundles. The next section there is the supplies and fees related to instruction. These are the software packages actually used by the students for classes. So Autodesk is a big one that's supporting the MedEd program. And I won't go through each one. Stop at any point if you have a specific question. There is a line item that I suspect there was some questions on. It's teacher laptops. We have that listed as high school and middle school. I spoke at the facilities committee briefly about that. But just because the age of our equipment, I think the timing is right to start introducing more laptops in the district as a way to reduce the overall number of workstations. So I have a line item there. About $40,000 for high school and around $16,000 for the middle school. Their estimates at this point, technology quotes change on an almost weekly basis. I don't expect the number to change because the number that I can purchase may fluctuate slightly, but it's around 100 between the two buildings. Any questions on that specifically?
So your assumption is if you had to buy them today and you bought 100 of them, it would cost $40,000?
100 of them, I'm sorry, between high school and middle school, it's about 56,000.
Right.
And I'm looking at models ranging in $550 range. So again, that number fluctuates constantly. It's a big change over what we've done in the past. I think the average computer price in the past has been closer to 1,100. The laptop that I personally have, I've seen that number. Changing brands, we're doing some bids to try and get the numbers down so that we can get the quantity.
So is this assumption that in June you think you're going to get 100 computers for $50,000?
We'll be getting a vote in place to get them delivered July 1st.
Right.
Yes. So votes are generally good for 30 days, so it's just estimates at this point.
Mr. Haas, so what you're saying is you're going to looking at buying a laptop. So if you have a teacher that's in one classroom moves to another, where there used to be two separate desktops, now the teacher's going to have one laptop that he can use in multiple locations.
Yeah, correct. There's a lot of computers tied to workrooms. Like I said before the meeting, or went to the faculty room, there's a computer there, so the teachers can work in the faculty room along with the printer. That need kind of goes away if they have a computer they can take with them. The reason I want to do it at the secondary level is because teachers move around at the secondary level. Elementary teachers, I think, will benefit from it in the long run, but the benefit is much greater at the high school than middle school. They have duties, study halls. In our office, we have loaners. Teachers run in and out all day, grab those loaners to run to the next class, but we only have 3. So there's usually a race to get to those 3.
Do you guys, have you looked at actual costs over the last couple of years in terms of all these other budget items? I mean, I just see the budget, but I don't see actual costs. So I have nothing really to compare whether we're overspending or underspending on these line items.
Most of them are the same in terms of the curriculum-based systems, the Compass, the Autodesk. Those items are generally pretty much the same year over year.
You see, the actual costs are exactly what you have in the budget?
I'm not saying exactly. They're pretty much
within a couple of...
We just got an invoice for Compass for the service that we did earlier in March. Those numbers were within a couple of dollars.
Okay, I'm just trying to, when I'm looking at the budget here, if there is any play or there isn't, I mean, a licensing agreement is a licensing agreement and it costs X number of dollars. Is that number the same number every year, or is it increase every year and you've got that budget in here? Or something like miscellaneous supplies, flash drives, CDs, cables, you got a number, and is it really that number, or is it some number less than that, or some number greater than that?
It's an estimate. I mean, historically what they did is when it was bid and they made a bulk purchase in the summer. In that case, it would have been that exact number because they would have to have that information in the winter. What I'm starting to move to, rather than doing the bid, there's a state contract.
Yeah.
Where oftentimes we can get the same or better pricing occasionally. We're going to move to more of a just in time. So when somebody says they need 40 flash drives for their class, we'll get them 40 flash drives. Since technology prices tend to go down, hoping to save there, but I don't know every supply that we need.
Have we looked, and I'm not sure, I know there's some other issues with that, but in this day and age where computers are, as you said, they're getting so expensive.
Sure.
I have to believe, and I'm not arrogant to believe everybody does it, I got to believe a lot of teachers have their own laptops.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. Can't they use their own?
Yeah, there's some.
No, let me finish the point out. Instead of buying a brand new laptop for $500, $700, depending upon the cost, if the teacher is willing to use their own personal laptop,
correct,
then maybe we can give them some type of stipend, a $200 stipend or something, because we're using their laptop in school. And we save half our cost of a new laptop. Now, I know you've got other issues where you've got to put, the virus software and everything else, but, I'm looking at a possibility of another way of doing it. They're getting a couple $100 for using their own computer.
I think the only issue you may run into there is, at least this way, if you're purchasing a laptop, it's the district's for 5 years, 6 years, whatever, however long it lasts, right? If you're giving someone a stipend to use their laptop, it's a one-shot deal. I mean, is it you give them a stipend every year for $200 every year for 6 years, or?
You just save $20,000 if you did that.
Like you said, Jeff, a second, I think there's other more management
outside the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah,
No, that's a good suggestion.
In the long run, a couple years from now, when we have other capabilities, we can start to introduce some of those guest services type things and let people bring their own. We're just nowhere near there.
Have you looked at tablets instead and kind of lower costs?
Well, I haven't considered too many Android tablets because I don't think they're very popular in education at this point. There's just, again, a lot of management pieces that go with that. I'm personally hoping Windows 8 is a good product, but it doesn't come out for another 8 months, so it's hard to say. If that does happen, we may be able to do that for next year. I think in the elementary hands, some of that might make sense. The other piece that comes into play there, again, our wireless isn't sufficient to support large volumes of computers. We added 20 to this room, you'd start to drop off. We just don't have the coverage or the equipment for it.
I have a quick question. Let's say we give every teacher in the middle school a laptop and we get rid of their workstation in the classroom. Now if that teacher is absent for a day for whatever reason and a substitute has to come in, are we going to give that substitute a laptop for the day? How is that substitute going to be able to use the PowerPoint, the Word documents on that teacher's computer if that computer is not available?
We'd probably have to consider something like a learner similar to what we have now. The couple that we have, I think that's something reserved.
And would this would be compatible with the projectors, the speakers on the ceiling,
Yeah.
all that?
Yeah, pretty much everything can work with the projectors. It's just a matter of having a loose cable there to plug in, much like I've done or any presenter's done.
The issue is more of, is the data available? Because physically, the machine's not there anymore, the machine's at home with the teacher, and her lesson plan is on that computer. How do you get it to the substitute?
I think, again, I'm not the principal to really speak to how the subs work through that, but that issue would occur now. Generally, those files are on shared drives, not stored to the local computer, but that's up to each teacher to make those materials available. Longer-term subs, totally different scenario. We'd be setting them up similar to the different full-time employee.
How old are the computers getting in the elementary school?
You said again?
How old are the computers in the elementary schools?
On average, I'd say, putting Monocacy aside, because that's a newer building, so there was some newer computers there, probably looking at 7 to 9 years.
How many more years?
How many more years can we get out of them?
That's my question.
I can't believe you're getting any use out of them now.
So what you're telling me is we're pushing the limit.
I think you can pass it.
Have you budgeted any in here? Not for the others, but to filter down. Have you filtered any down?
Is by buying 100 laptops, I'll be able to free up 130, 140 from the secondary.
Then that will filter down to the elementary school. So you are doing, okay.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to replace some of them.
I'm not a
Okay.
fan of the push down, but I think that would be.
I just gave mine up.
400 computers, so.
I'm contributing.
Push down is going to have to get us by for right now.
Okay. So in other words, if you don't replace the ones at the high school and upper levels, the elementary school, you're going to be cutting it close next year.
Right, they'd be getting, I think they're probably 3 computers at the high school.
Okay.
Those are pushed into the teacher's hands.
That's my question.
All of this information, all of these numbers are included in the master budget we've been given, correct? Okay.
Yes, the bottom line number that I have is the same one that Mr. Campbell had back in the fall. I can reallocate some things where I thought was appropriate, philosophical differences, or I put those funds to computers.
Thank you. Just me.
We've talked about this in the past. We're passing laptops out, we're passing the desktops out that have their own individual hard drives. What is the actual vision down the road to go to a monitor, keyboard, and everything on the server?
The virtual side, right. The virtual desktops. That question's come up several times. I've talked to a couple of consultants about it, trying to get their feedback on whether it actually saves money. And I think I mentioned this again at the facilities meeting. The general consensus that I'm hearing from people doing that is not that you're saving funds, it's that you're increasing some control, some consistency. But generally speaking, you still need current hardware to do it. The consultant that we're working on the Microsoft project with went through an example where they're using laptops, inexpensive laptops, relatively new, and every time they boot up, they get the new image, so to speak, to that new desktop. So from that perspective, it's a more consistent computer for the kids. But he said they're not saving money by doing it. It just shifts from you have cheaper laptops and you put it back
I know that I have a computer that GE gives me, whatever, gracious hard to use. But every time I log into the server, it takes everything in my data file and dumps it up. I have no control. It takes all the new data and it sends it
All
out.
your new files and push it up to
And
that.
push it up so they've got the latest image of what's in the data file. We thought about that process so that teachers absent that day.
Like a cloud.
Yeah, we got things in the automated side of it. Every user, every employee in the district has a computer, has a drive where they store files. That we strongly encourage them to put the files, that's where they're backed up.
But you're strongly encouraging it, you're not mandating it.
Well, we don't have the software, the
Okay,
policies.
so it's a software.
Yeah, we don't, currently we don't have the software to pull that up.
It takes some.
I think the big challenge this year is getting off the Novell platform, getting these new systems in place for the teachers. Mr. Haas is going to have his hands full making that a success, and then improving on efficiencies in following years to make it even better. It needs the foundation to even get this thing started. This year is more of an investment year for that foundation.
Correct. I think none of us know where laptops or tablets are going, but I'm very confident say 100 laptops this year will still be well in use 5 years from now this year. It's not like 2 years from now we'll be obsolete.
Yeah, I would concur. This laptop in front of me is 5 years old, so I can't imagine why we wouldn't be hanging on to these things for quite some time. Any other questions for our technology director regarding the budget? Would it be possible to get, this looks like it was pivoted out of the budget, would it be possible to get the actual cost for the last couple of years pivoted out as well?
Mr. Haas actually did this himself. He didn't, I don't think, pull it, or did you pivot it out?
It is a pivot table, but it's just a pivot table of the current year.
Okay, now to answer your question, it's going to be extremely hard to give you actual costs because he has actually used the chart of accounts like he is supposed to and is charging things where they're supposed to be charged, where in prior years, that was not the battle or the hill that we were going to fight at that point. I met resistance and I couldn't get it through. So I think anything we would give you, I don't think it's going to benefit you at all, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and just something I learned through that process.
This year can be your new benchmark year.
Well, and the state changes account codes every year. I mean, some of the accounts I had on here in meetings ends up cheating that they were out there.
Right.
Came out in July and we just used them to this point. So the state doesn't make it any easier in offering new accounts, new breakouts on an annual basis.
And I think Mr. Haas can speak for himself and the fact that he kind of did this from scratch because he really, even though we had the data, it was hard for him to try to match it up and figure out.
But if we took the budget that you're presenting, how would it compare to the monies that we're spending?
You were into that. Budget for this year, I think it's about 390. I think 397.
397, 875.
I looked at it this morning. I think there's 325 of that I think is already spent as of March 31st. Again, some of that's because of the freeze, so certain plans were delayed. At this point, we're spending as we need, putting in first order based on things that are actually breaking, which, again, quite honestly, is regular occurrence.
So basically, this is pretty consistent with your previous costs.
Yeah, it's 10,000 less in total, budget to budget. My guess is by the end of June, there's probably not going to be much left in my investment. And starting July 1, we have 300 more computers going out of warranty. So that's, again, more stuff that we'll have to repair.
So, just so we're all clear, if you move forward with what you have proposed here, from an IT perspective, where are we this time next year? We're migrated off of Novell completely?
We'll be off the Novell by midsummer. My team will be off of it by May. We've already done some preliminary work. All the orders have been placed. One last one this afternoon. I think is out, or maybe not. But we'll be out right after the break, and we have a kickoff meeting next week. out here last summer and then shut down by the Monday.
So that's all done. We're all Microsoft. We're swapping out workstations with personal laptops for the teachers.
Not personal.
Or
employee laptops.
You know,
yes,
a laptop for each
yeah.
teacher.
Yeah.
Instead of a workstation for each classroom.
Yes.
And they're like the big hitters that we were trying to get to as far as IT goes. I mean, what's left in the future? In the future, it's more enhancing with automation and things like that, right?
I think anything, I'm hoping, to keep kind of pushing the expenses down, but 100 laptops a year, 100 computers a year isn't enough. We have 2,000. I put that in that email that I shared with everybody. Over 2,000, 2,100. Even if I can reduce that down, 1,800 is the number I'm getting. We're still on an 18-year refresh cycle at 100 a year. So I think next year I'll probably be saying, I'm going to buy 200 and I save money in these other areas. Or I'm hoping that's the case. Or I'm going to be asking for more funds.
But what you think with this budget, though, you're in pretty good shape as far as servers go and that type of infrastructure.
Well, the next school year I think I can get by. I wouldn't say I'm in good shape. I'm not trying to be a dude there. I haven't seen a lot.
No, I'm just trying to figure out where we'll be this time next year.
Right now,
for IT needs.
The servers that we have right now that are going to support the Microsoft project we purchased last year, they'll have, I think, probably a 3-year warranty on by default. Reasonably, we can get 4 or 5 years out. We'll just have to invest in warranty extension. We'll be able to repurpose a few things, but it's a continuous cycle. You got to keep investing to keep relevant and current. But a lot of the big ones, to your point, are going to be hopefully done in the next year. Wireless will be another big endeavor at some point. Right now, the wireless is basically stuff you can pick up at Staples, or could have 4 or 5 years ago. Not really sufficient.
Now, for these teacher laptops, if a teacher damages a laptop, will they be paying for that?
That's some of the details we'll have to work out. First, I need your support to say we should go forward. They'll obviously have warranties on them. We'll have to look at. I've talked to some districts actually take out their insurance for them. I don't know if that makes sense from a cost perspective. Again, we think the number for each laptop for $550 to insure the whole lot. I don't know that that's going to make sense. Somebody will drop it, lose it, run over with their car. I've heard all those stories. They all really do happen sometime. So we kind of just have to have that plan.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Net, we're still looking at, we're still looking for about $1.5 million. Again, you don't like the ballpark term.
No, you're not.
Well, right there, our total deficit is 1.4.
Right, but you're bringing over almost 800,000 off of that. So you're about 600,000 if you're still looking at the 1.5 placeholder.
I think we have to relook at that 1.5.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
Absolutely.
I would agree.
Yes. That's a big variable.
But
Well, because
Especially
you're
bringing
taking,
800,000 over.
you're taking almost half your fund
I
balance.
think, right, yeah, because that's going to put us 2.4 in the hole next year.
Well, no, you're taking almost half your fund balance in 1 year.
Right. We are as well.
We have to just look at, as we project.
It's a process.
Future balances. And
Correct.
A 5-year plan. We just keep, I don't see how we're going to be able to take that 1.5. Correct.
Point well taken.
I think the issue is, in terms of long term, we've got to be thinking of as well is, our contractual obligations are moving at a clip of $2.5 million a year, and at that rate, that's
It's trouble.
yeah. I mean, they're moving at 10%, 8, 9, 10, 11% a year. I was just doing some back of the envelope calculations, and from 13, 14, you're looking at 2.7 million. 14, 15, 2.6 million. You're taking $800,000 and using it this year. You just add that to what the contract's moving next year, and you're looking at $3.2 million right there. That's not even taking into consideration any administrative salary and benefit increases. It's not taking into consideration.
Or any fund balance besides the
fund balance issues. It's not taking into consideration facility, transportation cost increases, anything else. So I think I think we need to be thinking long term and how we're going to deploy our fund balance capital to help solve these budget deficits going forward over the long term, as well as in terms of programming, what things we're going to talk about. I don't see how you're going to balance the budget going forward without actually taking a good hard look at programming going forward.
I think for now we take the 790 and move it over, and then reduce the fund balance by the 790.
Right.
It's right back to where we are.
Yeah, we still have a $1.4 million gap.
But if we want to talk about placeholders, I mean, I would be agreeable to doing that.
Yeah, it also looks to me like these are my words on the sheet I put is the reduction in enrollment pay for Marcus, which was the 1.5 FTE, and the reduced class size second grade is how I couched it as 1 FTE. And that seems like that's a recommended option that's very tentative with 2.5 FTE. And I know we don't have a cost for the 1 FTE, but we do have the 112, 590, 95.
And I agree with that as long as, again, my concern is I don't want 26 elementary school kids.
Well, they said that wasn't going to say.
I agree. I'm just letting you know. But when I first saw that and they were going to go up, that's where I'd have a problem. If we're not increasing technically class number of students, that's fine.
That's why I couched it as reduction.
And I agree with you. I'm just making that point. I don't want parents coming in saying.
I agree.
Consider we took away aides this year, current year.
Now, maybe Mr. Shaheen knows as a legislative representative, has there been any action on anything in Harrisburg that allows furlough employees based on economic issues?
No.
All the direction in Harrisburg seems to be right now, and I heard there were two competing. I didn't see the one. There's one bill right now for property tax elimination. Apparently there was dueling news conferences.
Correct.
On two of them. But we'll see where that goes. But understand that brings its own issues with us. We eliminate property tax, but Big Brother controls a lot of what we do. Which, again, there's good and the bad with it. We don't have to wrestle with the property tax issue anymore.
Or we take what we get.
Right.
And I'm following that as well based on the way Harrisburg and most state capitals tend to work. I wouldn't count on factoring that into this year's budget.
Probably not, no. But again, and I'm going to hopefully be corrected down the road somewhere here. But like everything else that's come out, when we did the state sales tax was originally put in place historically to 100% fund education. Until years and years ago, they found out how much money there was, so they gave a little bit of it, and the rest of it goes to somebody else's coffers. Casino revenue was supposed to go to those districts that opted into it until they saw how much it was, and then all of a sudden everybody got a piece of it. I'm skeptical. I'm hoping to be changed and educated when things come down the road here, but to see if this plan does what it's supposed to do. Few states have done it properly, Virginia being one of them. Have eliminated property tax by 100% of lottery revenue going to fund schools. And they're not talking about laying off teachers. They're being continually funded at the rate they need to be funded at. So we'll see.
Well, I believe the proposal that's introduced will maintain current funding for this year. Down the road, we don't know, but for what we're bringing in now, the current proposal, HB 1776, will continue to levelly fund the district.
Right, but they don't talk about cost of living raises. They don't talk, at least not that I've seen, and how that piece plays into moving forward. But I'm told it does. So when I find out, you'll find out.
Just quickly, for the administration, Anne Marie and Dr. Otto, last year we had discussed a couple of different ideas, and we took them off the table for legality reasons and some other things like that. I guess I just had a quick question on a few. So one was reduction of a high school assistant principal to 10 months. at $17,000. Another one was reduction of a secretary per building of $241,000. And there were some other things in here about demotion of elementary basic skills teachers and things of that nature. Can you just refresh me why we took those off the table last year? It's been 12 months. It escapes me now.
The people reduced to 80% was sort of decided for us in an arbitration hearing, where the arbitrator, talking in terms of a middle school music instructor, that we moved to 80%. They reinstated that individual to full-time, and the logic that they provided was that if you have the individual doing the same workload and just taking away non-instructional duties, they're still doing the same job, and therefore that doesn't consider them as an 80% person.
We'd have to reduce the workload by 80% as well.
Correct. They would have to lose instructional teaching.
And we couldn't add it to somebody else's workload.
Correct. Nor could you add it to an administrator. We talked about counselors, we talked about department chairs, and the idea originally was, well, let's say the high school assistant principals would do the jobs of the department chairs, and then we turned to hear the result of subcontracting to a different group, and that would also be an arbitration loss to the district, and so that's why we didn't do the department chairs. And we could reduce your basic skills instruction. They are part of the math instruction and reading instruction programs at the elementary, so we would just be taking away some duty time to make them 80%, and that would fall under that same arbitration.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. We have a bunch of board members here that, haven't...
And in terms of, let's say even just an administrator, either being reduced, it may not be the person that you're looking at, because, again, seniority could go into play, that a lot of administrators at building levels in the district have K-12 certs, and therefore the savings that it might look like may be less, because it wouldn't be the individual that you were looking at, you would be reassigned.
But also last year, based upon what the Act 90
yes.
back,
when we took a 0%
increase, it was based upon that position not being
demoted.
Yes. Then that was an increase to us. So.
And I think the one position you had asked as far as a district-wide type of administrator reduction, we did not fill Mrs. Conway's position, and that was that particular position.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Appreciate you explaining that.
Can we double back to the fund balance again? Are we okay leaving that placeholder there, or would we like to reduce that?
No, I think Mr. McLaughlin's comment was it's still 1.5.
No,
I thought I heard we were moving the 790 over to reduce expense and
cutting it in half.
Reducing fund balance
Yeah,
by
but
that.
So deficit stayed the same.
Correct.
Yeah, deficit stayed the same.
Well, that was my comment, but I didn't hear. I saw a bunch of blanks there. All right.
What are you saying? You're saying take the 1.5
We're taking
down.
790 in and bringing it over, but then taking 790 out of the fund balance, and net it's even.
So what Mr. Seminara is asking is, do we want to lower the 1.5?
Yes.
Since
So
none
that
of
was
us feel comfortable.
$710,000.
Change the value of the placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but forget it. It's still net. You're asking, do we want to lower it all together because we don't, at the end, want to take 1.5 out.
Right.
So what do we feel more comfortable with? In January, we're like, yeah, 1.5 we feel comfortable with. Now in April, do we feel comfortable taking one? Apparently we don't.
I think
and most of us
again,
don't.
what you had asked, and I agreed to it, I think we agreed to it. If we're bringing 790 from the right over to the left, reduce the fund balance to 710, net, we're still $1.4 million short as of this stage.
Correct.
But no one has, I didn't hear anyone else agreeing to that. So
correct.
Do we have a consensus or not that the fund balance number here that says 1.5 will be changed to 710,000?
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
We can always change that.
Right, that can change. That can change right up to the day we vote on this budget.
And we're not going to vote until
the end of June.
Well, let's back up.
Whoa. That's May. June's way too late.
Whoa.
They're not doing the right thing.
Well, first of all, you as a board have to vote on the voting meeting in May, which I don't have the date off the top of my head, but you have to approve a proposed final. That then gets advertised in 10 or 20 days after that to the public. However, as always has been said, that even though you approve a proposed final, it still can be changed until the final vote in
Didn't I
June.
just say that?
Yes,
I did say that.
but you have a vote in May.
Right.
So
we
in
understand
May,
that part. We
but
understand that
no,
part.
but back up.
Right.
Because by the beginning of May, I need to know as a board what's in, what's out, so I can produce that form for you.
Correct.
For the committee of the whole.
Keep working it right up until the vote in June.
We've got meetings on the 14th and the 28th.
But there's an appointment
28th is
before we
Memorial
even
Day.
make a decision on
It
some
is
of this
Memorial
stuff,
Day.
which I think
You're right,
we're
21st.
So the question, Mr. Samir, do you feel
You're
so
right.
confident with the 710? That's
I'm not sure, but the 1.5 is pretty high.
okay, and I agree with you. That's what I'm asking. But that's, I think, what you're asking, correct?
That's why we all agreed to go to 700.
Well, I don't know if I'm not necessarily asking if you're comfortable with the 710, but are you comfortable changing this placeholder to the 710?
Well, yeah, I think we have to
We're
spend
back
the
to back again
790
in
no
May
matter what.
because of the holiday.
I think everybody-
If we don't spend the 790, we're going to trouble with the IRS. So I think earlier tonight we all agreed to spend the 790. Where Mrs. Penza puts it, the net effect.
Well, no, it will reduce your expenditures.
Correct.
Then Mr. Seminole wants to also reduce that 1.5 to the 710.
And I think everybody said yes.
Correct.
Right. So it's not where I put it. I mean, it's going.
Yeah, but
But Kevin's point is the 1.45 stays.
the 1.45 stays.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That stays
the
the
same.
Correct.
Well, now has the board at all decided on any of these other things to move to the
Well, I
left?
think you said.
Some have said yes, some have said
Well,
no, so I don't have a
I
consensus.
think we agreed that 200 in special ed goes over.
Well, we kind of did
I
again.
heard
No. I think what we agreed to was a reduction in enrollment of 1.5 FTEs because that's almost by default. We're not going to hire additional people at this point.
Okay.
Right?
So
That's 112.
112 goes over.
Okay.
and then some number of X, which is the
Yeah.
Okay.
Something less than
It's 112
more than
So round
plus.
off
Right, so you
200,000.
want that over as well?
Right.
So
Okay.
round over 200,000.
What about the middle school foreign language?
Well, I think the middle school foreign language and the special ed were two things that we
Hold.
We're going to hold. We got at least one more meeting coming up.
So in other words, the 1.4 drops to like 1.2,
Yeah, that's what I would think.
right?
It looks to me like
Is that what you agree? So most people
1.33.
think it's 1.2 after we move the two items over. Give or take, whatever that,
Probably 1,250.
whatever. Yeah,
Correct.
I don't know what that one person equals. I'm rounding off to 200,000 between them both. So we're talking, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. 1.2. Correct.
Well, then you have your reductions in revenues too, so you're going to be.
We'll figure it
That's
out.
almost a net. I think when we talk
We'll do the
about
math on the sheet for you.
Commerce Bank and
But
the
still, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But the Commerce Bank.
We'll update the sheet.
on Tuesday.
That's right. You guys are in education. Look at the work product. See how much more productivity we can have.
What was the original projection for the activity fee?
154, 500, I think.
That includes physical with the physicals.
That included the physicals.
Now,
And game
And gate receipts.
No,
gate receipts.
no.
Oh, no.
The gate receipts.
Oh yeah, gate receipts was extra. It was like $60,000 or something like that for gate receipts.
Of that 100?
No.
No, in addition to.
In addition to that,
Yes.
so what's the ratio of that 150 between the activity fee and the physical?
Like 20 grand for physical.
Yeah,
Physicals aren't much at all, so it's mostly
So it's
activity
like
fee.
mostly
Yes.
130 is.
Are we sure we collected every activity fee? I'm not asking you. I'm asking, do we know? I have a sneaky suspicion we did.
Well, if you know something we don't, we'd like to know.
I don't know.
Don't keep it a secret.
I got a
I'm going
sneaky
to tell you right
suspicion.
now,
You would have to ask
That-
Mrs. Goss.
Again,
daughter showed up as being paid for Spanish Club, and I know I never sent the check in. And I gave it to her and said, take the check in. And
there you
give
go.
it in.
There you go.
So I know that checks were, that
See, I knew it was
numbers,
Mr.
people were
Sheen. I
checked
heard.
off that didn't At least
I heard
one
it.
did. Well, after one, there were others.
See, that's why I don't want to mention I knew it was Mr. Sheen. No, I'm just kidding.
And then,
No, we can certainly ask the question. We'll do some research.
All I'm saying is
We sent ours in, and because I know she didn't pay, and I said, last time
again, I think we need to make sure.
I know a few people I've spoken to have said that they have not paid the activity fee.
And they're not coming after them.
Yeah.
Again,
Well, that's important. We need to, I mean,
well, again,
it's $20,000 that could be sitting out
I
there.
agree with you. What I'm saying is that's their job. I mean, I'm just pointing out.
Yeah, so I think you guys
Mine
need
was
to
an
take a
overall
look at that.
question. Did we collect everything we're not?
I had no knowledge prior.
I mean, we're keeping books on who's paid and who hasn't paid, and there's a list of people who participate, so it shouldn't be that difficult
Yeah,
to
there's
match
an
the two
accountability
up.
factor there that I need to know about. So
That's more important.
But
That and the
Mr.
money's
Bailey,
important,
But even
but
the list of those who have paid
we'll check it out.
haven't paid, but are being checked
But
up.
we have receipts. I mean, people written checks. People,
A lot of them gave cash.
Cash.
Receipts.
there should have been receipts issued or something.
We'll check into it.
No, they won't do it cash. No.
Might be other problem with these activity fees, if you were looking at it in a static environment, that the people who participated one year is going to participate in the following year. Or the dynamic has been, some people just can't afford that $150 for the fee, and the second one of $75, so they've chosen not to participate.
They found that the number of people participating in sports did not decrease.
Well, maybe not sports, but there's a lot of other things besides sports that, the band took.
Band took a hit.
I think the reason why
Part of the band is.
Take a hit because of the activity.
Yeah.
Take a hit because
It doesn't. I don't think that matters. I think his point is we lost the funds.
There's two things.
Well, no, Mr. Wolf's assumption was because of the fee. I mean,
Right.
And I don't want to jump to that assumption.
It's not-
You're right. The number's down.
There's two reasons: moving the extracurricular
Right.
and the fee.
I think what we did though last year is when we were talking, we looked at based on past participation in all clubs and activities and band and sports and everything else, the number was X. And what we did was we
ran a model.
We ran the model, and then we took, I think, 80% of X or something like that and put that into our budget.
Yeah, we didn't just guess. We ran a model who we thought would be.
We definitely discounted it because we knew there was going to be some change. And then, obviously it's going to be a moving target going forward. We're going to have to take a look at what enrollment was this year, look at that versus our model, and then move forward and make estimates towards next year.
I just wondered if there was a better way to come up with that same amount of money. Maybe moving to the Muhlenberg or the Twin Valley model.
Which is what?
Which is all the kids from 7 through 12 pay an activity fee.
And you know what?
Every single person.
We looked into this, and we found. And my question is, and no one could answer that last year, nor we will get an answer this year. How can you charge a kid that doesn't participate? We're free and public education. How can you label across the line a seventh grader who participates in nothing and charge them $30 activity
Well,
fee?
apparently 2 schools have figured out
And
how to do it.
Again, when we talked to Mr. Zubers last year, the point was last year was,
We didn't
and I'm
want
not.
it to be challenged, and we didn't want to have to take the legal.
Well, yeah, and I still don't know. In fact, I thought Muhlenberg there was a group fighting that.
Now, I think
I don't know that. I mean,
if you do that,
And
you
I
bring the fee down.
understand.
I think
Again,
you get a lot of support for that.
because it's free and public.
Well, I mean, what it does,
It's a user fee, period.
Right, there's a number of people who, quite frankly, don't qualify for the free or reduced meal plan, so they don't get any relief from the activity fee. So it almost excludes some of these kids that are lower income from
Correct.
being able to participate, especially if you have more than one child in school.
Correct.
Where, if you're looking at a 50, and I'll just throw out a number, I think Muhlenberg is $50. I mean, $50 is much less of a burden than spreading it over.
But again, Mr. Wolf and Mr. Basil, correct, we did state that even if you didn't qualify for free and reduced lunch, if you could prove financially you could not afford to pay for it, we were not going to prohibit you from participating in an extracurricular sport due to financial hardship.
And I still want to know how they got away with that. There was a group last year fighting Muhlenberg, and I don't know if they're going to do it again.
Well, I
Because
talked
again,
to the guy at the BCTC the other day in Twin Valley, they did the same thing.
I'm not arguing that they did it.
No, but both articles are...
I'm not arguing that
I mean, I
they
think
did it. Again,
the activity committee actually came out with one recommendation, which was a flat rate across the board, right, for everything. And then that didn't fly. So then the next one was, okay, we're going to do a scaled rate, and it's only going to apply to the people who actually participate. And that's where we came up with what we came up with.
I'm just looking
And
for a more stable number. And you know, when you look at some of the activities that the kids aren't participating in, band being one of them, they're not going to participate in the Memorial Day parade. That's going to be a problem because the kids now have a choice whether they are or not going to participate. So putting that activity fee, assigning it like that, takes care of an issue of, well, it doesn't matter if it's co-curricular or extracurricular because they're all paying the same fee. And if there's an expectation that some of these organizations are doing community service, it takes that issue off the table.
So are you saying that the approach they took was every single student?
That's what,
Yeah.
that's what the article in the
Yeah, they do. They did.
Not participating students.
From seventh grade.
If we have 1,200 students in the building, they all get a fee.
No, middle school too.
It's 18, in our case, in Muhlenberg, it's 7 through 12.
Yeah.
So if you applied that model here, it's a little over 1,800 students.
And everybody is charged, no matter whether your child cannot participate in one activity.
So
you're charged.
take this scenario. If you've got a low-income family who's got 3 or 4 kids in the school district, they can't afford for the kids to pay the activity fee, so they keep them out of the activities. Now we're going to say, too bad, you got to pay anyway, because you've got 3 kids in the school.
Correct.
I mean,
Hypothetically, that's what would happen.
Hypothetically, you're right. You could do the reverse.
You're right.
You could do the reverse where they could get it for free because they're in free and reduced lunch, but now you're telling them, no, they got to pay $50 a kid because we're doing it across the board. And again, I still don't know how they, again,
I'll research it.
you
I
got to
think
research it is how do you charge somebody when they're not getting anything in return?
I mean, I like the approach that is, there is something appealing about that model because you can just it's a dollar figure based on enrollment, right? So whatever your enrollment is, you can figure out as a percentage of enrollment. Boom, here's what the number is we can anticipate every year, and that would just float up and down with whatever your enrollment figures are. And so there's some simplistic beauty to that. I guess the issue is also one of getting over these other political hurdles.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Saying,
Well, I would say this.
We did. I mean, they're up at Juniata, they $250 a student for activity fee. So, I mean, it's much worse. But I mean, there's some other districts that have come up with a different model to fund these. And quite frankly, if I'm paying $50 for an activity, and I'm going to choose an activity if I'm inclined, since my parents are paying for it. Hey, I might as well participate.
Well, I think the thing is, and take Mr. McCullough's example, you're an 8th grader, and you don't participate in any sport, you don't participate in any activity. What are you going to do if I don't pay it? You can't suspend me.
You can't throw them out of school.
You can't throw me out of school.
You can't throw them out of school.
You can't. I'm not going to Spanish club, so you can't tell me I can't go to Spanish club. I'm running tracks. You can't tell me I can't.
Or the other thing is, then the coaches, are you obligated to put them on the team?
I'm not saying, but you're not on any of those activities.
No, but I'm saying the other thing is, if they pay the fee, are they on the team automatically? Then you get to the point you can't cut them because they paid the fee.
No, we don't have that issue.
We don't, but you could if everybody paid.
Let's ask Mr. Subers instead of throwing around.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know what I mean?
I'll ask.
I agree. I disagree with pushing that kind of hardship on every single student in the school district.
Well, let me just ask and see if it's.
Yeah, we may be going down a road that we don't. That is.
Correct.
And I would just say that Muhlenberg solicitors differ sometimes in their interpretations. I'm sure they must have gotten their solicitor to weigh in on it.
1,600 students at $50 a shot gets us $80,000, and if we get thrown into half a dozen lawsuits over it, we lost them.
Well, no, don't we also reduce if there's 2 kids in the program, right?
Yeah.
Second child pays less?
Yes.
So there is.
Well, no, the second activity pays less.
Okay, but then there's a family cap.
And we have a family cap.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have that, but if we do the $50 a kid.
Yeah, correct. Okay.
Let's just.
Yep. There was a silver bullet.
Do we want to try to pick another date other than next Wednesday so we get that done?
Yes.
There's a number of not available, I believe. Mr. Simonero's out. Mr. McCullough may not be available, so.
What date works for people the following week?
Why don't you just take it to the 16th?
The 11th doesn't work, so.
What about the 10th? Does that work at all? Tuesday?
Not for me.
I'm gone next week.
Oh, yeah, you guys will just get back on Tuesday. You never do anything for us.
Will the 16th work, the following Monday?
No, we have a board meeting.
We could front load it.
Unless you have it instead of finance before.
6:30, 7:30.
I don't know if I'll be able to be here that day. Just I might visit next week.
probably worth doing that day. Yeah, what you don't finish, Mr. Bailey, you got to do another hour before the 23rd one too. So you get actual two one-hour sessions, which I think you'll get more accomplished in 1 hour sessions than
sitting here for 2 hours.
So, yeah. So why don't you do the 16th at 6:30 or at 6:15?
We have the revitalization on the
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah, but we only need 15 minutes to do a recap to present to the board. Actually, we're doing the 16th to present to the board.
Right.
So you could do 6:15 to 7:15.
And are you embedding that in the agenda, or are you doing that as a separate meeting?
No, I'm embedding. No, first of all, we're meeting as a
We're going to
committee.
meet as
Okay.
a committee,
Then we'll do
and then we'll bring it from
we'll bring it
Okay.
to 4. But if we do 6 to 7 or 6:15 to 7:15 on the 16th.
Does that work all right for everybody else?
Doesn't work for me, like it works for everybody else.
Well, you're not going to make the committee of the whole anyway,
I won't
correct?
be able to make the whole.
So, no disrespect, but
Yeah, I'm only one person.
And we are, on the 16th, we're at the IU, right?
no.
No, that's
23rd
the
we're doing it.
23rd.
And we're
23rd, we're at BCTC. Just remember that. And we have a dinner beforehand, so that might not be a
We were
good
there
night.
before, right?
23rd.
23rd.
This is the one and only,
Are we
right?
gonna do
Correct.
instructions for that?
Yeah. It's closer to your house now.
So what do you want? You want to do the 16th
Let's schedule it for the 16th
at 6?
at 6.
Got that, Lori?
Wait, that's the, what am I advertising that as, a
Budget
workshop?
Budget
Open
workshop.
Budget workshop.
16th at 6.
Here?
Yeah, I guess it would be here.
Yes, we're here until further notice, I would assume.
Well, we were going to be back at Matthew Brook on the 16th.
We are?
We were going to be.
I think if we're going to do a budget meeting, we're going to probably want to be here,
Okay,
All right.
just because you don't know who's going to show up.
Right.
okay.
April 16th here.
And then based upon what we do there, we do
6 for budget, 7:30 for
Committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole.
In favor, do an economic revitalization for 7:15.
On what, the 16th?
Yeah, we only need 15 minutes. We just need, as a committee, to get our final decision what to recommend.
Economic revitalization on the
Committee.
16th, at what time?
7:15, right?
7:15. Yeah, I think
Mr.
that's fine.
Basil, 15 minutes?
Yep.
We only need 15 minutes.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments or questions on the budget?
This might sound, are we going to take anything from old recommendations and pull anything out from old notes to balance this?
That's sort of what I just went through.
That's what they emailed us.
So that was the, oh, okay.
And I just asked Anne Marie to kind of state that publicly. What those, I mean, all the other items we've already included as part of our.
Those are all original.
Now, on, Mrs. Hammond, can you finish?
Yeah.
Okay. On the 16th, we're going to have a budget workshop, and then we're not going, we still have, we're going to have more to do, right? We're not going to be.
Yeah, it's not the be all end all.
All right.
Sure. We'll probably have to schedule another one after that, and then we have to have a preliminary done so that we can vote on it sometime in May.
We've got the voting meeting where we can discuss this stuff, or have a meeting before then or after then, whatever. And we'll probably end up scheduling another budget workshop, I would imagine, first week of May, just to hammer things out, because Ms. Pence is going to need something from us by May 4th, I think, at the latest.
In order to get it to you by that next Wednesday, so you have it the way you always have it for the committee of the whole. Yeah.
Right, for discussion. So I would say plan on penciling something in for, well, why don't we just look at the first week of May while we're here. That April 30th through May 4th week. You want to schedule something for like that, I don't know, Tuesday, May 1st or May 3rd?
Third is, we have a third, it'd be the third in a row that we missed of the curriculum. It is what it is.
Can you?
Wednesday.
I don't know if I can do that.
Just close.
Can we just do Monday the 30th?
Yeah, Monday the 30th.
Monday the 30th works for me.
The reason why I say Mondays, kind of everybody does that, is that Monday's open. I'm just asking.
It's an extra Monday in the month.
The rest of the weeks are kind of hard. The rest of that week is kind of hard for me.
There's too many Mondays in there.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of the week's kind of hard, so you want to just want to put the 30th?
Time?
Okay.
7 o'clock?
Yeah, that's fine.
What day are we at?
The 30th.
Of April?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, keep them all here just to keep it consistent. No, I'm good. April 30th.
No, that week.
No, he's on. He's get his own butt home.
Okay. All right, so we've got that scheduled. All right, any other
It's
questions
all
or
good
comments?
now. I'm thinking.
Anyone from the public?
Rick Martino, 225 West Drive, Douglasville. And please understand, sitting out here without the information, all of you are privy to some of the things I say may contradict what you're thinking, but I heard you talking about class sizes at different meetings. I've heard the state mandate that you can't go over a certain class size. I heard Mrs. Trainer say there's some facility restrictions, but I think more than $1 million shortfall, you still need to look at class sizes. I don't know what the limits are, but you've heard me speak over enough. I don't want any tax increase. House Bill 1776 mentioned if and when that's passed, and I don't believe it'll be this year either, if and when that's passed, then you have to live within what's given to you. You'll have to live within what's given to you. And I don't think it's right that now that you don't have to do that, if you just take the taxpayers and say, well, since we can, we're going to raise your taxes. You need to learn to live within what you have. You talked about activity fees.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I heard about these other school districts that everyone is charged an activity fee, and that, not to get too political here, strikes me as socialism. Why should kids that aren't participating in that activity subsidize those that are? I think the fairer way to do it would be to discern the cost of the football program, which several board members have told me we have to have sports. Discern the cost of it, and the people that participate in it, let them pay for it, not the kids that don't participate. I mean, you can't be all things to all people. I've heard the softball team wanted additional coaches, the cross-country team wanted additional coaches, the football team's up in arms, they don't have so many coaches. We can't be all things to all people. I have a granddaughter who's going to start school in this school district in 2 years. My stepdaughter graduated in the school district. She played soccer for the athletic club. Paid for it. It wasn't subsidized by other kids. We paid for it. My granddaughter, I'd like her to be on the swim team. You don't have a pool. Are you going to build a pool for my granddaughter? No, you're not, because you can't afford it. And that's what you need to tell some of these other people, is that we can't afford it. What a lot of the public doesn't know is that in addition to these $45 and $50 million annual budgets, this district is deep in debt, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, is not the total debt for this district from the building and all that stuff, all the construction, somewhere between $90 and $100 million?
Yeah.
Yes.
The public ought to be aware of that. I think this place would be full if they knew that there's a $90 million debt that they and their children are going to have to pay someday. Paying a little bit more in taxes every year. I've only lived here 10 years, but it's gone up almost every one of those 10 years. And I've heard that, well, if we don't have sports, people won't want to live here. Is that the reason we have a school district? We're going to eliminate a middle school foreign language program, but God forbid we're not going to touch football. That makes no sense. You're in the business of education. You're not in the business of sports. And I just would like you all to consider that before you finalize a budget that's going to raise the taxes again. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that we are hating, when, just because we don't like an option doesn't mean we shouldn't at least look at it, because a few people have brought this to me, and I just said, well, I'll break it up. I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying, that this is how some of the other districts are, what they're doing to try to get this around the problem. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm just, just because we don't like something doesn't mean we shouldn't discuss and say, yeah, that's not for us either.
I understand, Mr. Wolf. I wasn't pointing a finger at you or anybody else up here. I pointed a finger at some of the previous board decisions. And I think we should discuss everything. Everything that could possibly benefit both the school and the taxpayers of this district. I just wanted to voice that I don't think because Muhlenberg or Twin Valley does something like that you should have, I think we mentioned there's 1,800 students in grade 7 or 12. I don't think 1,100 of them should be subsidizing the other 700 that are actually participating in activities. That's just my thought.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Mr. Martino brought up the fact that if we have, the idea, the notion that if we have maybe, let's say, 50 kids playing on the football team, and the football team costs $50,000, for example, why not charge each of them $60,000 or something like that? Why not make it for activity? If I'm in chess club, and chess club costs $2,000, and 10 other kids are in chess club, why not make it like that?
We did look at that. It was looked at. One of the things you'll find out, Bill, you're on that committee, you have to look at the entire scope of things, and what people are not able to see is the football team did bring in a significant amount of revenue, and based upon their head, they'd be paying a lower fee than your chess club members.
I think that was the issue that we ran into. I mean, quite frankly, that was the position I was advocating, that, hey, look, figure out what all the costs were, divide it by the number of students, boom, there you go. But you also have to take into consideration the revenue that a particular activity may generate, right? So football generates a lot of money, basketball generates some money, and so on and so forth. And that pretty much makes up the bulk of the $60,000 worth of gate receipts that we make. Chess club, bowling, these other ones, they don't generate any revenue, so it would strictly be whatever the cost was divided by the number of people, and all of a sudden those costs went out the wazoo. And
I mean, your chess club people probably pay $500 a person to play chess because $3,000 you only have a handful of chess club people.
Then we have to look at maybe it's chess club worth it for at least.
That's a whole other issue. Yeah, I mean that you get into which clubs are you going to support, or which activities do you value more than others. It was obviously that's a political football that the board obviously decided they weren't going to go with, and they were just going to pick a different methodology for in putting in place an activity fee. I mean, I think you can also look at what the collegiate colleges and universities do. I mean, business schools generate a heck of a lot of revenue, and it goes and supports all kinds of other schools within that university. Penn State football generates hundreds of millions of dollars a year. It doesn't go all to Penn State football. It goes to subsidize all those other things. The
college owns the money.
That are money losses, right? And so because otherwise you couldn't afford to have those programs. And I think you almost have to take that sort of philosophy down to what we're doing here, is that certain activities are going to generate revenues and others aren't going to generate any revenues. And,
something as we move forward, I brought this up at a previous board meeting. We're looking at cutting expenses. I think it would be helpful if we looked at the clubs and we looked how many kids participated in some of these clubs. Is a club that only serves 5 kids worth the $3,000 it costs to run? I think that's something we should look at, and I know we don't want to get into picking and choosing clubs over other clubs, but if it's a very significant per capita cost, I really think we should look at that.
Sure. All right. Yep. Great. And we did that because we no longer have a ski club, because there was only a handful of students that participated in the ski club. But as Mr. Basil said, though, because there's only 5 kids in the chess club that's getting $50 a child, the football team is subsidizing that program, and the baseball team. You understand?
I understand that. My point of view is I'd rather.
You also lose that $250 worth of revenue.
Unless it's that $50 fee for all the clubs too. I bet the chess club kids are also in on it. Maybe not too, but
well, look, it's something we can certainly look at. I mean, we have the numbers. We can figure out who's participating in what. I think, we are sort of differentiating the clubs from the athletics and band because clubs typically didn't have, other costs associated with them other than the stipends themselves, the advisor stipends. Athletics and other things, you had uniforms, you had equipment, you had transportation costs, and so, that's a much bigger number that needed to be supported, hence the difference in fees.
Maybe we should throw athletics into that too. We should look at if this team only has, if only 20 kids are participating in this athletic activity, it's costing $10,000. I don't know. Maybe we should.
No, then you got to be careful.
Title IX.
Title IX.
Got a Title IX issue?
You got a Title IX issue.
And also
you can look at that, but you need to look at the Title IX issue alongside it.
We tried that before, and that's what we ran into.
Yeah.
Mr. Legaff looked at that. He looked
Correct.
at the participation, and he weighted
Gotta be
it.
careful.
And it's just not whether one sport has 20 and another has 6. If one sport has 20 and you eliminate it, and it's a girl sport, you've got to find another boy sport that has 20. Okay? And you just can't say, well, we eliminate the 6 here and the 20 there. It's got to be equal.
I'm not saying eliminate anything. I think it would be helpful to look at.
I haven't got the numbers from last year. I'll email them to you. You can start to look at them and sort the data any way you want. And, yeah, that's not a problem at all.
There's sports we can take back to club status.
Well, look, I think the other issue that we ran into was, we asked, could coaches or whoever, advisors that are being paid a stipend, be volunteers? And the answer to that is no, because you have a collective bargaining issue, right? And the issue was, well, can you get rid of a sport and bring it back under, the guise of something else? And the answer was really no. You're going to lose that arbitration because you can't substitute a paid employee with a volunteer unless the collective bargaining group agrees to it in some fashion.
We've gone down a number of these, but we can take a look at it again.
Which is why we refuse to bring on sports like lacrosse and ice hockey and some of these other ones, because we didn't want that precedent applying to that thing. We said, look, it could be a club. We're not taking it on. Once you take it on, you can't give it back. It's ours to keep.
So I think it needs to be made clear I think it's important for people in the audience. If we look at a club and if we cannot have if a parent wants to come in and volunteer to advise chess club, for example, we cannot accept that parent volunteer. It wouldn't cost the district anything because our collective bargaining agreement with the teachers, we would have to pay a teacher to do that, correct, even if we have a parent who wants to.
Sure. If there's a teacher willing to do it.
If there's a teacher willing to do it, right. And actually, I believe we would have to actually pay the parent.
You would have to pay the
because it's under the collective bargaining
agreement. Subcontract.
So even if they want to do it for free, we'd still have to pay them. Now, if they want to donate it back to us, that's a whole other issue. But
I just think that needs to be made clear for everybody who's listening in. I mean, it would be great if we could have volunteers come in. And there are other people who want to volunteer. But
we went down that road and talked about it. And if it's there and it's in the collective bargaining, it needs to be paid, regardless of who does it.
I hope it's something that can be changed in the next 4 years, just my opinion.
Not in the next 4 years. I think whenever it's up again.
We had talked about some facilities, whether it would be the Matthew Brook building or school, people moving our kids around. Where does that fall in here? That's still an open issue for monies? Where does that land all in this preliminary budget?
Matthew Brook, we still have a lease, at least for one more year. So we're kind of stuck with that where it is, unless the landlord allowed us to break the lease.
So is that open on the table?
I think that would be an open on the table issue. I think the other thing was, at least my recollection from the last facilities meeting, was you guys were going to take a deeper dive into the usage figures in terms of buildings and rooms and that sort of thing.
Can we put that to bed for once and for all? I mean, I keep hearing running around, we can close Burnsboro, we can close Burnsboro.
At least put it for next year, the 12, 13.
If we have reductions, I think then we bring it back next year.
I think we just need to say.
Is it feasible to close Burnsboro right
For the 12, 13 year.
For the 12, 13 year?
No.
Then can we just not bring that up? What?
There's a timeline of like 18 months.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So can we just not put that, like Mr. Sheen said, can we get that out of the thought process of everybody now? So we all understand and we're not going to do it July 1st?
Any way, shape, or form that can occur? I mean, it's a savings if we can do it.
If you're going to do it, you have to start that process like tomorrow.
So that, again, your answer is We cannot do it July 1st.
No, we already represented with the numbers we showed. The request was to go back and take a deeper look at it. We can have that information ready on the 16th and bring it forward to take a further look at it.
Can you look at, and then let's put it to bed on the 16th?
Correct.
Sure. We'll put it on the agenda.
Rehashing it?
Yeah. Let's on the 16th, can you read?
Actually, where we've redirected our efforts is looking at relocating our central office function somewhere else in the district.
I got that,
but you can't do that for another year anyways.
We could only do that if there would be some negotiation with our lease at Matthew Brook.
Or a year from now.
Or correct, when it runs out.
Okay, please look at the Birdsboro, come back on the 16th, and let us know yes or no.
I think it's true.
No.
We can do that.
Yeah, I think you just need to look into the intensity of the use.
We've already started to dabble into that. We'll be ready on the 16th.
Okay. The next question I have is, we did not specifically, Mrs. Trainer said she has the ability to provide us with class size and potential changes to class size. How deeply have we explored that?
On that sheet that I showed you, I'm limited to 26, 27 in a room based on the size of the room. And so when I tried to reduce some of those, I hate to keep going back to the foreign language piece. I could give you more class size reduction if I don't have to do the foreign language piece. It probably would come out in the wash. It would be the same amount of numbers. But I would then focus my efforts on focus, for example, the two positions I was willing to sacrifice in the elementary to teach the reading program at the middle school would then be reconsidered in terms of class size reduction. So you wouldn't see more than the number of more bodies that we talked about tonight. The second grade position at APC, by reducing 7 sections to 6 sections, is really the only class size that you can still raise to 24 and put the desks in a row. Once I started reducing them, I was getting 31, 32s, 29s, and that many desks won't fit in those rooms. So we're pretty much maxed out at that particular point. About 4 or 5 people total, whichever way you want to go with it. I won't be able to go more than what we're talking about tonight. It will just be different people.
Thank you.
What would the, I'll throw this bomb out there. What would the implication be to do away with kindergarten altogether?
Well, right now everybody's registered.
No, I understand that, but I'm thinking ahead.
Would require a curtailment application again, same process.
Yeah, I know that.
Which we haven't done.
It significantly hurt a lot of students' academic progress because we already find why discarding the number of the students coming into kindergarten at their skill level. So we spend kindergarten trying to bring them up to speed. And I've written the curriculum for the half day to try and do that with some extra interventions. I think you would, not in the short term, but in 2 or 3 years, significantly see different academic achievement without us having at least that half day program in place.
Yeah.
How many of the students that went outside the district full day came back?
To first grade? We figured there were about 31 total, and I'm looking at about 19 I expect to see back across the 3 buildings.
And I would dare say if we were to curtail kindergarten total, we may not see many come back. We would see them stay
Until 8th grade.
alternative.
Until 8th grade.
Yeah, until 8th grade.
Then they come over.
And then when you kill them.
Or 6th grade, I should say. So this right out of elementary school until 6th grade.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, I just had actually one quick question for you guys. One of the responses I got was with Subers and the legal costs. We thought we were on target for our regular legal costs, maybe a little over on our special ed. but you weren't sure what the invoicing was for, was it
Sweet Stevens.
Sweet Stevens.
There are, we use them for special ed counsel.
Yeah, who makes the call when they're calling Sweet Stevens? Is that completely within the purview of the special ed director? Or?
Yes. I mean, we use them. I mean, I really don't, unless they need my input. I don't really correspond with them myself. That's usually done. And that's pretty much the model anywhere I've ever been.
We just should call them in when you notify the parents of the lawyer. Does she do it preemptively, or how does she?
Are they on a retainer?
We have a pool counsel arrangement with them that gives us a certain amount of, based on the pool counsel amount. Well, I don't want to say free.
These other invoices are in addition to that?
These other invoices, they begin to invoice us if we have a specific pool counsel doesn't cover due process case issues.
Well, that's, I guess, where I was going is there any kind of review as to whether or not the additional services that are being requested are warranted or not warranted? And I'm all for the resource being available and them picking up the phone and making the call to make sure we're doing things correctly, because God knows a lawsuit far exceeds the cost of a phone call. However, at the same time, do we have people just calling them up willy-nilly?
No, there's only one person that calls Sweet Stevens. That's Mrs. Mikowski.
Yeah.
We don't have psychologists or principals or anybody else calling Sweet Stevens. That's very controlled.
Yeah, but are you guys at your level, are you reviewing the invoices to say, well, look, why'd you call about this and that, these extra bills, or?
I don't know that we've taken it to that level yet. I mean, if it hasn't really become problematic to get it to that point, but we can certainly do that.
Okay. I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know whether we're over budget by $50,000 or $5,000. You know what I mean? Like, so I think if we're over budget by $50,000, I think it requires some review. If we're over by, a couple $1,000s, well,
I don't think the $50,000 was my intent in that response.
No, I'm not saying it was. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just.
What have we been historically?
Not off the top of my head. We did reduce that one actually from last year as well.
Right.
So, I mean, we're on, I think we've historically budgeted a lot higher than.
We've been in a good cycle due process-wise. I don't, knock on wood, I don't want to say any more about it.
Again, that's fine. I mean, if we keep going over budget, then we need a little
Being
more
that this is the first year that we reduced that one, I think we're going to hand out and tell you more. I mean, it's hard.
My thought only was that if we start going over budget on a continued basis, oversight is needed.
Right.
Right.
We'll take a look at it anyway.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Excuse me. Okay. Last chance from the public. All right. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.